Let me explain how most recruiters work, and then I'll look at a different context and explain why it's dumb. Right? What most recruiters do is we talk to, let's stick with a client for a second. We speak to a client and they go, oh, yeah, I've got this requirement, I've got that requirement, I've got the other. And what we instantly do is go, oh, great, I've got one of them. Oh, yeah, I can do that. And we jump in, and we then maybe bring out the slide deck and start explaining how we've got all this experience, and here's the corporate video, and here's the website, and here's all the stuff, and here's the testimonials. And we pick up a deal, we don't pick up a deal. That's the way most people act. Alternatively, we pick up a deal, but we're at the same rate as everybody else, and we don't get it exclusive, and we certainly don't pick up any retainers, and we're just in there. And the mental image I've got is some kind of giant mud fight with every other recruiter in the market. Yeah? Just let the concept of me in a mud bath fighting with people, just let that sink into your head for a second, just to sort of make you dwell on how unpleasant that is. So let me give you a couple of different scenarios, because most of us are trying to deal with problems that people know they've got. Okay? And we do it by trying to show our expertise. So let me give you a scenario. I mentioned, I think last week, the week before last, that our demeanour should be more like a professional advisor than a salesperson. We should be more engineer, accountant, lawyer, even barrister, than we should be salesperson. Yeah? We should be barrister rather than somebody in retail trying to flog you some stuff. Yeah? Okay, let me give you a scenario. Let's say somebody's got a headache. They've got a headache, the headache's gone on for a couple of weeks, and they go to the doctor. And the doctor says, oh, okay, have some of these and let the headache go away. No problem. Are you massively grateful and you can't wait to refer them to everybody else? Well, no. All they do is give you some ibuprofen, so what? It made the headache go away, but Okay, try this. You've got a stomachache. Stomachache comes on at 8:30 every night. It's awful. It's like major stomach cramps, and you've got this horrendous kind of cramping, whirring feeling. You feel like you want to be sick, but you can't. It's horrible. It starts at 8:30 every evening, finishes 9:30 every evening. Lasts an hour, but it's awful. It's horrific. Okay? You go to a doctor and they go, no idea what that is, mate. Have some IBS treatment. Right, that doesn't do anything. Go to another doctor, they go, I have no idea what that is, have some ibuprofen. That doesn't do anything. Go to a third doctor, they go, I just have no idea what to do with that. Have some Gaviscon, antacid treatment. And you take it and it's pink and it's horrible and it still doesn't do any good. Okay? Then you go to a doctor and they go, you start to explain, you go, I've got this thing, it's a stomachache. It starts at 8:30 every night. They go, oh, hang on, horrible stomach cramps, feels like you want to be sick, but you can't. Finishes at 9:30. You go, oh my God, yes. And they go, yeah. You've got duodenal answer. Not a major problem. Dealt with that loads of times. And they walk off. Okay? They try and usher you out the door. What's the probability that you're going to let them leave that room without giving you some kind of treatment? I would suggest it's probably slim to none. Yeah, because they've diagnosed the problem. They've explained that they can solve it, but they haven't given you a solution yet. So you are now gagging for a solution. True? Not true? Yeah? Right. That's called demand creation. So we're not trying to solve a problem that they know the solution for, and we're just in there giving everybody a slightly different flavour of Gaviscon, slightly different flavour of antacid. Okay, which is what most recruiters are doing. Instead, they've come to us with a specific problem, and we have solved that problem, or shown that we can solve that problem, which is nice, because that means we can pick up exclusives and maybe a slightly better fee. Okay? Happy days. We still might slightly be in slide deck land, but so be it. But dealing with a known problem in a way that gets them to come to you rather than you pushing at them is much more effective. Because if you try and push somebody, they'll push back. If you come over as a salesperson, they'll stop buying. Does that make sense? Have I got you with? Yeah? Okay. I'll give you a third scenario. You go to the doctor. Just to make this simple, we'll treat it as an American medical situation because there's money involved. Okay, so you go to a doctor and you go, I've got this horrific headache, but I can only afford to spend $100. And they go, yeah, okay, come in, no problem. Let's have a bit of a checkup. So they do a bit of sort of feeling around in your head, and they say, right, we need to take a scan. So they take you off, and they do a CAT scan. And when they do a CAT scan, it comes back, and they go, yeah, we've got a problem in there. We've got a mass in there. We need to do some more tests. Okay. They do some more tests. They come back, and they go, okay, we've got mass. It is growing. You do have a major problem. You go, how long have I got to live? And they go, 10, 9. How long? Well, it's major. We're talking probably months, certainly not years. Well, okay, suddenly your $100, your £100, who gives a shit about that, right? So instead, okay, well, what do I do? So, well, there's this course of treatment we can do. We probably need to do some surgery. We certainly need to do some medical treatments. It's going to cost about $200,000, 200,000 quid, full stop. Yeah, being American, you've got some medical insurance, but it only covers 180,000. Okay, you now need 20,000 quid, $20,000 to stay alive. You came in with a budget of 100. You're going to walk away and say, no, I can't afford that, I've only got 100. Or are you going to find some damn way of finding the gap in the money? What are you going to do? You're going to find the money. Yeah? You're going to do something to find that money. You just are. Yeah? That's the difference, because there's offering to solve a problem they don't know they've got. Nasty, horrible. You're always selling really hard. There's showing that you can solve a problem they've got really well. That's great. You might get a slightly better deal than everybody else. You might get an exclusive, maybe. And then there's solving a problem that they didn't know they had. And that's the value. Because when you can create a problem, when you can create the awareness of a problem that somebody didn't know they had, you are off to the races. Because at that point, you are defining the market. You're not pricing compared to anybody else. You're not a recruitment consultant competing with the PSL. You are the consultant who recognize that they've got a problem that even they didn't know about, and you've shown them how to fix it. I would suggest, my wonderful humans, that is a massive difference. That is all the difference in the world. Yeah? And that's why I think the time before last, I was explaining that I don't really pitch very much. How hard do you think that third medical practitioner has to pitch the treatment? You've got cancerous growth in your head that you didn't know about. It's growing at a rate of knots. I can make it go away. You don't need a slide deck. Fair? Yeah? This is demand creation as opposed to demand fulfillment. That's what we're trying to do. That's what all this stuff we've talked about has been about. Hang on, why didn't you tell me that at the start? I listened more. You wouldn't, I promise you. You'd be trying to fit it into a context of what you already know. That's what people do. People learn in a couple of different ways, but the biggest problem with people learning is that they're confronted with something completely new and they try and fit it into what they already know. So you give somebody a completely different approach to questioning and they try and fit it into their existing process, their existing script. And what we're just talking about, what we're going to finish off today, is a completely different upside down process. I'm beginning to regret the woolly jumper. It was a good idea when I walked in here. It's beginning to be a really quite bad idea now. So the point I'm making is you can deal with a problem somebody knows they've got, and that's fine. If you deal with the problem that somebody knows they've got in a really different way or in a really spectacular way, and you can identify the real issue, that's great. That's the Doctor Who duodenal answer, which is, it just means stomach roll. Yeah? It's just the same thing. I just invented the term. Yeah? Alex, the kids know Latin for reasons. Anyway, What we're going to do instead, with all the stuff that we've done, I'm now going to round it off into a little technique so that you don't create a problem. That's a silly idea. You create awareness of a problem so that you can then solve it. So you create an awareness of a problem that they don't know they've got, which means that their current suppliers or their current talent acquisition team cannot be solving it because it wouldn't exist. And then you show them how to resolve it. And here's the little pro tip I'll give you. Before you show them how you can solve it, you make them suffer a bit first, so they really care. Yeah. So that medical example, I wish I could do it with English, but we've got a health service. You go in, they say you've got a mass. How bad is it? I don't know. I'll come back again in 6 months and I'll tell you. That's the NHS version of that story. It isn't quite as good. So let's look at what we're going to do now. If you remember last session, we did this thing called positive and negative framing questions, which is where you ask positive questions about what they want to achieve and about working with you and about the future. And you ask negative framing questions about the problems they're having, their current situation, the past, their current suppliers and solutions. Yeah? Okay, we do that through setup, question, response, follow-up that we talked about, I think, the week before that. Yeah. So we set the question up. That's things like inoculations, it's priming phrases, focus phrases, it's summaries and truth sets. The truth sets, by the way, is that bit I did last session where I was showing you the sort of softening language, where I'll say like, what you want to try and do as much as possible instead of saying what you have to do all the time. Yeah. That, by the way, is the single most difficult thing I've ever found to teach somebody to do, because you've got to be aware of what you're saying before you say it. And most people aren't, because most of us aren't that conscious. Most of us, yeah, most of us aren't that conscious most of the time. Oh, slippy language. But also, until you've got used to it, if you're listening to yourself before you say it, have you ever seen those experiments where people have played back? You have headphones on and you play back your words as you're saying them. They're playing back exactly as you're saying them. You can't process. You can't speak because you're hearing it at exactly the same time, and it blocks out the audio channels. Because we only actually have one audio channel at a time. Even if the voices are talking to you, they're not doing it at the same time as you're talking to yourself. No matter what they're saying, it happens sequentially. So it's hard to learn, but it's so powerful when you make it as difficult as possible for people to say no, like I just did. When you make it as difficult as possible, not impossible, when you make it as difficult as possible for people to think or say no, they're almost certain to think or say yes. Now let me reword that slightly and you'll see the point. If you make it impossible for people to say no, it becomes impossible. If you make it impossible for people to say no, they have to say yes. And I bet there's some part of you that's going, no, bollocks, that's too much. Now, there's always an exception. But if I say, if you make it as difficult as possible for people to say no, then it's very likely that they'll say yes. Bar none, hardest thing I've ever learned. It took me probably, and this is underselling it like crazy, it probably took me about 3 years to get anywhere decent at it, and a lot of beating from people in your situation. Because I'm trying to teach that, and then I'd slip up, and I get 50 people going, whoa, hang on. Yeah, it's all right. So it's hard to practice, but it's incredibly valuable. And yes, I did just say it's hard to practice, because that is just a statement of fact. When you try it, you'll find it is hard to practice. But it's such a worthwhile skill. Okay, so we've done positive and negative framing questions. Set up positive and negative framing question. Positive, best, easiest, fastest, most profitable. Negative, hardest, slowest, worst, most expensive. Then we get their answer, which most people just kind of ignore when they're doing training courses. But here's the secret with this. Listen. If you're on a Teams call, watch. Do not be one of those people who waits to speak. People who listen and people who wait to speak. People who wait to speak always end up paraphrasing, and they have a much harder time relating to the other person because they didn't really listen to them in the first place. They didn't really tune in. The more you tune in, the more the other person is heard. Because when you say something, let's face it, if you tell me your opinion, if you tell me your history, if you tell me what's going on, if you tell me your, in modern parlance, like you young people, if you tell me your truth, what you want is to know that you've been heard. You want to know that I'm taking it seriously and that I'm relating to it. What you don't want is to tell me your stuff and for me then to go, oh yeah, great, and ask you a completely different question or change the subject or just ignore it. That's just flipping rude. Yeah? It's not just me, is it? It's not just me being old-fashioned. That just is bloody rude. Yeah? It's certainly no way to maintain and build rapport, and it's certainly no way to create demand. So what do we do instead? We do the follow-up. And I'm shortcutting the whole follow-up by just giving you the thing, which is once somebody gives you their answer, you pee all over them. Okay? We're going to spend the really important part of the sales process peeing on people. Sorry, for God's sake, tell me that's an acronym. Yes, it is. First P is precision. We've touched on this in the last couple of sessions, but I just want to break it down a little bit. Precision is that process where you're not asking precise questions, you're getting precise answers. So it's bizarrely, it's the opposite of asking precise questions. It's actually asking very vague questions to get precise answers, which I know is likely to sound a bit bizarre, but it does work. I'll show you in a second. We've then got the smashing bit in the middle, which is empathize. I'll demonstrate precision in a second. Empathize, amazingly complicated. Let me just give it to you now. Oh, I'm with you. Okay, yeah, I see that. Oh, I understand. Gotcha. That's empathy. That's the empathy bit. You don't have to do this big explanation, or you just want to nod at them and go, oh, okay, I'm with you. Just to show that you've been, listening. And then is what I regard as the sales bit. This is my sale. Okay, so back in the academy, you'll find there's a new module within Straight Line Recruitment. Straight Line Recruitment, I've done the LinkedIn piece, I've done the connections piece, I've done the cold outreach piece, done rapport, which we haven't spent that much time on, but rapport is in there, well worth a watch for anybody at any time, and now I've done the questions piece. Okay, it's about the longest piece on questions I've ever done. Not long in time, but long in, I've broken it down into really granular little pieces. Yeah, there's a couple of 10-minute pieces in there, but most of it's like a minute and a half, 2 or 3 minutes. It breaks down everything we've done in the last 2 or 3 sessions just in one little stream. Okay, so precision. Okay, precision. Precision has 2 little pieces to it. Okay, the first is parrot phrase, not paraphrase, parrot phrase. So, Joe, you said this, and I don't spin it, I don't put an angle on it, I don't try and be clever and turn it into a pitch. So if Joe says, oh yeah, we're having a little bit of a challenge with this, what I don't do is say, oh Joe, you said you're having a massive problem with this that's causing you money, causing you problems. That wasn't what I said at all. Oh Joe, you said you're having a bit of a problem. Yeah. Parrot phrase, I use somebody's words back to them literally. So Scott, you said this, yeah. Em, you said that, yeah. And I'm literally playing their words back to them. Now, what I can do, by the way, I'll put this, okay. When I do the diagram of setup, question, response, follow-up, that's a flat circle. Yeah. But the conversation is actually a helix, because a conversation goes set up, question, response, follow up, and then it goes up a level, and then it goes up, and then it goes up, and then it goes up, and then it goes up. So for the precision, what I can do is refer back to something that Joe said 20 minutes ago. I can have set up, question, response, follow up about generalities, just to get the lie of the land. I can talk about their business, their current recruitment practices. I can talk about kind of people they want, the plans they've got, all the stuff that's in the 3-level business conversation. And then, so I've gone, business, people, recruitment, the 3-level business conversation. And then after 20 minutes, I can go, oh, Joe, earlier on you said you were trying to grow at 20% this year. How's that going? Trying to grow, is that top line, bottom line? How do you mean? Yeah. So I can go back to something that was earlier in the conversation. By the way, you want to prove that you're listening? Nothing will do it better than that. If you word for word what somebody said 15 minutes before, practically hear their jaw clank. So you go, gentlemen, practical tip for you, by the way. Moving on. Okay. What we now do is ask a vague question. These are, technically they're called precision questions. It comes from NLP. It comes from two guys. There's Dr. Richard Bandler, who is a certified genius and mad as a box of frogs. He is insane, but bloody smart. He calls this meta programs, meta language. There's another guy called John Grinder, who is much more grounded, but not as brilliant. And he calls it precision model. So I just use that language because meta gets a bit too woo-woo. So precision model, precision questions. So I repeat back, Joe, earlier on you said you were looking to grow the business by 20%. I'm not sure I understand whether, is that top line, bottom line, people? How do you mean? So the precision question is, how do you mean? Or in what way? Or what's your definition? Or could you give me an example? Those are the 4 I tend to use all the flipping time. Yeah. The only advice I would give you is to make sure you get your tonality right, because otherwise you will sound like a chump. Joe, you said you're trying to grow your business by 20%. How do you mean? Yeah, you'd sound like a chump, yeah? But if I preface it, I go, it could be top line, bottom line, number of people. How do you mean? How do you mean? Now, strictly speaking, that doesn't sound like a question, because I put it with a downward inflection. Because in English, a question has an upward inflection. Because how do you mean? But we're going, how do you mean? To make it sound authoritative.
So, would you, instead of, I'm just trying to think, because if someone told me that, I'd probably ask it there and then. So would you'd hold off on a couple of questions you've got where...
I might hang off on the really important ones. Yeah, I mean, you can do both, by the way. So what you could do is, as they say it, as they're talking about the business and say they want to grow at 20%, you can go, oh, how do you mean? Yeah, and get them to expand on it a little bit. Yeah. So I'll send you a recording, so we can get them to expand upon it. Okay. What I can then do is go back and say, hey, Joe, you said that you were trying to grow by 20% this year, and that was primarily in terms of top line. Yeah. Well, how about in terms of the other elements? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah. So I can do precision here, and then I can go back to it later and get even more precise. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Genuinely?
Yeah. I mean, I think you can only save a couple of questions. Then why am I about this?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah. The other angle, and this is one that I tend to use, is I know it's difficult to believe, but if I'm not careful, I can come across as an arrogant arse. Feel free to jump in and go, no, heaven forfend. I just can. Yeah. I've spent a long time not being that lad from a council estate in South Manchester anymore. I've presented as a totally different person now. If I'm not careful, I can be a bit much. So what I do is I tend to sort of take the edge off by sort of, oh, maybe I'm not quite sure I got it. Right? Could you just expand on that bit for me? Yeah. But that only works if I've been very confident in my delivery all the way through. If I'm really confident in my delivery and I'm really confident in the way I present questions and I sound like I know what I'm doing, I can go back later and say, I think maybe I missed something. I can't do that at the first hurdle because I'll just sort of cut my own legs off. The angle here as well is slow down. Slow down. If I'm on a business conversation with somebody, I don't care if all I do is have a really in-depth conversation about their business. And then as the call ends, I set up another call to talk about their people, what kind of people are going to help them. And if that goes really well, and then I set up another call about how they're currently trying to recruit people. If I'm having a really good conversation with somebody and they're getting a lot out of it, I don't care if it takes 3 conversations. I don't care if it takes 5. Because at the end of it, I'm the person that can make the problem they didn't know about go away. So I'll take my time. I don't feel like I have to crash through everything in the one call. Catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. But the proviso there is you've got to be, the other person has to feel like you're adding value. If all you're doing is picking their brain without actually really giving them any value for it, it doesn't really work. But when you start doing this, by the way, what you'll start to see is people going, oh, if you hear vowel noises over the phone, that's vowel with a V, not a B. Okay? If you hear vowel noises from somebody over the phone, you know you're doing a bloody good job. Okay? When they go, ooh, you know that you just asked somebody to think. That is the sound of somebody's mental gears changing. Boom. That's a mental gear changing. That means you're asking someone to think about something they haven't thought about before. That's a conversation they'll remember. That's a conversation that has value. And that is when you can backfack. Backfack is book a call from a call. If you want to speak to this person again, never finish this call without setting up the next one. It's the most common problem I see with people is they're so, they go on a discovery call and they're so nervous about getting time with people. And they're so nervous about status and so nervous about trying to get the job done in one call that they kind of finish the call in a kind of heated rush and it's all a bit messy and it's, premature closing and there's a mess all over the table. And no, slow down, book a call from a call, backfack. Never finish a conversation without setting up the next one, even with a candidate. Okay? You're doing a first pre-qualification, and at the end of that call, you know there's somebody you want to work with. Either have you got another 15 minutes, or let's get time in the diary to have a longer conversation. Book a call from a call. With me? Yes? Super. Okay. Empathize, that's yeah, gotcha, with you. Okay. So these are basically very vague questions that get you lots of precise answers. So Joe's talking about growing his business 20% this year. In what way? What's your definition? Is it about top line, bottom line, headcount? What's it about? EBITDA? I don't know. Whatever it might be. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm with you. And then we amplify. Amplify. If somebody's got a problem, what do we want to do? Make it bigger. I like you. Don't care what Joe says about you. I think you're all right. Okay, we want to make it bigger before we solve what almost every recruiter I've ever worked with. Their first instinct is to go solve it, solve it, solve it. No, we want to make it much bigger. We don't want to make the headache go away. We want to do some scans and some blood tests, and then we'll make the cause of the headache go away. Yes, that's slow down. So the first thing we want to do is make it bigger. Okay? And the way to make something bigger is always the same. It's always, I know what I'm going to write. It's just a question I had to phrase my CV. Okay. either problem multiplied by time, or it's what they want multiplied by time. So if you're looking to, if the problem you're having, let's look at the problem to start with. Again, back to something we did the previous session, because you'd think there was a plan with this. Something we did in the previous session, we talked about creating a gap between what they've got and what they want, between the problems and hassle that they're having and what they want instead. And the bigger the gap, the easier it is to create motivation and desire. Well, if you can take that and you can multiply it by 50, and you can multiply their goals and positives by 50, they will come to you looking for a solution. They will come to you to set the budget. They will come to you to tell you how to tell, so that you can tell them how to do it. So what we do here is, let's say we're talking about challenge. What kind of problems might your clients have? Anything?
P&L experience.
You said P&L experience, how do you mean?
So someone who doesn't need to be babysat with X amount of millions on a single site.
Okay, so that's a specific requirement. What I would say is that's not actually a problem. Why is that particularly important?
Because they work kind of very...
Yeah. Okay, and what happens if they've got the wrong person in that place? Wrong person in that position?
Typically that person is asked to leave, or they're being coached needlessly by high leadership.
Okay, which means?
Lots of time. Lots of efficiency.
And is time expensive at this level, or? Yeah. How expensive? Okay, 100,000 a year. Okay, so if you get the wrong person in that position, over the course of a year, that's like, is that 100 grand? Minimum. Okay, so that's 100 grand of direct cost, or all the on cost as well? That's the direct cost. Okay, what's the potential cost to the business of that?
Depends on the P&L, but
okay, so having the wrong person in that kind of role, just in the immediate sense, is 100 grand. Over the course of months or a year, you're looking at 7 figures, possibly even 8 figures of cost of having the wrong person in that seat. Yeah, but that's not a very good example, but it's a decent example, because you've taken, I want P&L experience, so I don't need to handhold them, and you've turned it into, I don't want to lose $5 million. Well, it's not a great example.
Someone in that position,
Yeah,
would know that. They know that that's the reason for them. When you say, sometimes my concern is saying something, or not paraphrasing, but giving them I see what you're saying is this, and this, and this, and this. Don't spell out problems, mate. I already know.
Yeah. Okay. You're a rugby player, I believe. Yeah. Okay. What would make you better at rugby? Apart from basic genetics, what would make you better at rugby?
Being fitter.
Being fitter. Okay. Do you know that?
Yeah.
How long have you known that? What have you done about it? What's that thumping noise? That's a case being rested. Yeah. You know what the solution is. Yeah. You probably know that being a bit bigger in the upper body would work as well. Yeah. But but not to
legs.
Bit of legs, yeah. Bit of sledding, bit of sled pushing. Okay. Don't have a sled push more than 5 yards. You don't need to. Anyway, but the point, it's a really good example. Yeah. It's a really good example of, we all know stuff that we should have dealt with, but it's not reached the point that where we really care. Yeah. Okay. If you're fitter, yeah, you can join Sales Sharks. Okay. Not a massive contract, it's only 150 grand a year, but you can join Sales Sharks if your fitness is up to it. Any increase in motivation? Possibly, but you don't buy it yet. Okay. So I'm going to turn it into something real. Okay. But we've all got stuff that we deal with, and we just put up with it. That's just life. We've all got problems that we know we should deal with, but we don't, because we kind of got used to them. Yeah. We've got shoes that don't fit, but we'll wear them anyway, because what the hell, a bit of bunions, what the hell, I can deal with it. Don't measure anything. Okay. Or we've got weight we should lose, or we've got calls we know we should make, but we haven't, and we don't. I guarantee everyone around this table has got calls that they know they should have made last week, but they didn't. You've got calls or people that you know you should speak to because they drive your revenue forwards, but you haven't for whatever reason. Just knowing you've got a problem doesn't mean you care about it enough to fix it. It's not significant enough. Yeah, that's the difference. Because you're not wrong, Scott. It's just a question of the technical term is threshold. You have to reach a point where I'm not putting up with this crap anymore. I'm just, I can't. If it's a fitness day, I can't be. I've just walked up a flight of stairs, and my pulse is up. I'm not having that. That's ridiculous. Yeah, or I can't run the length of a football pitch without getting that breath. Yeah, I can't sprint more than 20 meters without getting dots in front of my eyes. Yeah, you reach a point of threshold. Threshold is at the point at which you won't put up with it anymore. It's that thing I was talking about where they put the big jars where the small jars are supposed to go. They squeeze the toothpaste in the middle, so suddenly you get divorced. Okay? Squeezing the toothpaste in the middle is not the cause for the divorce. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, I know I need to recruit in a different way because, I need to get the right people in. Yeah, whatever. Okay? That's obvious. But we dig in here to turn it into something that you care about. Yeah? Because Jerome knows he needs the right person in place, but he doesn't really care enough to give it any time. Because in Jerome's case, the problem the situation we're dealing with is not that the problem isn't a big one. It's that, honestly, it's such an obvious thing. You don't see why you should give it your mental focus. You don't see why you should bother putting any time and attention into it. But if you realise that recruiting in the wrong way and getting the wrong person is going to cost you $5 million in the next year, okay, that pretty much sucks. And if you realise it costs you $5 million in the next year and 10 hours a week that you're never getting back, that will start to suck. And once it sucks enough, you'll give it your attention. Okay? So what I'm dealing with in Jerome's case, Scott, is not actually a major business issue. It's a matter of Jerome doesn't really care about it yet, so I've got to get into the point where he gives a toss. Yeah. If it was a business issue, the fictional one I've been coming up with about Joe wanting to grow by 20% this year. Yeah, that's a business level one rather than a person level one. I mean, 3-level business conversation: business, people, recruitment. Yeah. Business level ones are always easier to really hammer with these. Frankly, it's much easier to hammer a business problem than it is a personal or a recruitment issue. Because almost nobody cares about recruitment issues. Even people in HR and talent acquisition don't really care about recruitment issues. They're just time consuming and fiddly. But you multiply time consuming and fiddly by how many people you're hiring this year? Okay, so how much time is that then? Oh, yeah, okay. So it takes you an extra 20 minutes per person. Yeah, okay. How many people are you hiring this year? About 200. Okay, so it's 200 times 20, that's 4,000 minutes. Yeah, that's 65 hours. Have I got the maths right on that, by the way? That's 4,000 divided by 4,000 divided by 60 is, I think, about, it's near enough 6.5. Yeah. That suddenly becomes something worth talking about. It suddenly becomes meaningful. It suddenly becomes, oh, okay. So you can take this approach with almost anything. You can sometimes use that as, instead of time, it might be quantity. Quantity is not as frequent. It's not as, that's a better way of putting this, Stephen. Quantity is more unusual. Because quantity is normally when you're dealing with the functional aspects, how many, how often, how much, yeah. But time is normally the great creator. So if I take somebody's goal, okay, so what are you wanting to achieve this year, okay? How long have you been trying to achieve that goal so far? Okay. And if that trend continues, where's that going to leave you in 6 months, a year from now? You're better off or worse off? Don't go with this. And it's really the very basic open questions. And I'm not being salesy about it. I'm just being a medical professional. I'm being a barrister. I'm being an accountant. I'm just giving you my advice. I'm giving you the benefit of all my experience. I'm not selling you anything. Because all I'm trying to do is make you aware of the problem so that we can treat the problem. It's holding together for you. Okay.
So would you always amplify everything through means of a question?
Rather than a statement?
Yeah.
No, let me think about that one. I could do it through a statement. I could do. I mean, I'm here. This is what I do. So I could do it through a statement. It's almost always more powerful as a question, because whatever I say is an opinion, but whatever you say is a fact. So no matter how influential or persuasive I am, I've still got to break through your viewpoint and your internal monologue. But if you say it, it's real and it hits. Yeah. So if I'm talking with someone circle, real conversation I had last Friday afternoon. Okay, so you've got these open vacancies any given time. Yeah, okay. Well, how long's that been going on for? Well, it's been like that for the last 9 months. Okay, fair enough. And in terms of business opportunity, each of those, what's each of those roles worth? What's each of those roles, what are you not making from those roles because you haven't got somebody in the job? 150 grand a year. Okay, so you've got, any given time you've got, I'll say 50, it was more than that, but it's 50. Okay, so any given time you've got 150 roles and it's 50 people at any given time. Okay, so that's, and this is what I actually did, so that's 50 times 150, that's, I know what the answer to that is. Okay? That's, how much is that? How much is that, John? Oh, 7.5 million. Okay, so that's been costing you 7.5 million a year for the past 6 years. Sorry, past 6 months. Cool. Yeah, okay. Well, what signs of improvement are you seeing? Not are you, by the way, because I want him to talk about it. What signs of improvement are you seeing? Well, frankly, none. Okay, so if that carries on at the current rate, the next 6 months or a year, where's that going to take you? What's that going to mean? And it takes it from a problem that he knows he's got to something that he really gives a toss about. Okay? Because over the course of a year, he's going to have left 7.5 million quid on the table because he can't be asked fixing a simple resourcing issue. I don't care who you're talking to, almost nobody's going to accept that. I wasn't selling. I was just being a consultant. I was just asking questions, By the way, we're not done yet. Okay, so, and what about the attrition? When you bring new people in, I mean, you were saying earlier on that you've got some issues with sort of early day retention. So how fast are you losing people? Well, typical new hires only with us about 6 months. Okay, so then they're only with you 6 months, and then you've got to hire a replacement again because you've not got the right person in place yet. Yeah. Okay, so you're not just losing 7.5 million quid there, you're losing all the training and setup time and all the onboarding and all the rest of it that you do with a new person coming in. What's don't want to beat you over the head with it, mate, but what kind of cost is that? Because I assume they're not producing yet at 6 months. No, they don't actually start bringing in revenue till like month 8, 9. Okay, so if you lose them after 6 months, you literally have nothing but cost. Yeah, okay. Of the new hires, what proportion do you lose after 6 months? Stick the bayonet in, okay? And once it's in, give it a good twist. It's not enough that it hurts. It has to really hurt. When I'm losing 7.5 million quid a year, and when I add up the number of new recruits who leave after 6 months, I'm also losing about another 2 million quid there. I've got a 9.5 million quid problem that I've known about because it's on my dashboard every day, and I just haven't fixed it. I've known it's there for the last 6 months. What have I done about it? Nothing. What am I going to do about it? You tell me. Yeah. How hard do you think the pitch was? That's really not hard. I don't have to go in with a slide. Actually, I have got to go into with a slide deck week after next, because I've booked a call for Oracle. I've got to go in week after next with the slide deck to basically show his team what they're going to do and why. Okay? Because I've now got a chief exec with a £9.5 million problem, plus a whole bunch of pain, because he's being jumped on by his bosses. So I don't think the slide presentation to HR, internal talent acquisition team, and finance, I don't think that's going to be a major dog and pony show. Maybe just me. Maybe being overly optimistic. But personally, I think the decision's already made, and he's now just using me to tell people what he's already decided. But maybe that's just me being overly optimistic. I'll know in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. Does that make any kind of sense? Yeah? I'm not suggesting it's easy. I'm not suggesting it's that straightforward all the time with everybody. But pretty much everyone you talk to has got stuff that they know they should do or ought to have. I'm a lot older than you guys. No, it doesn't look like it, but it is true. I'm a lot older than you guys. The things that will kill you when you get to my age, the things that you coulda, shoulda, woulda, that's what kills you. Because I don't care what situation you're in, there's stuff, business, personal, relationship, health, whatever it might be, there's stuff that you know you could do or should do or ought to do, but you haven't. Now, that was a bit absolute. Yes, I caught myself doing it, okay? But am I wrong? Is there something that you know you shoulda, coulda, woulda, oughta, but you haven't yet? Yes, no? Yeah? Because you haven't done this to yourself yet, or you haven't had somebody work it through with you. You haven't gone, okay, well, how long's that been going on for? Like 3 years. Shit. And what have I lost in that 3 years? Okay. And if I don't change, what's that? Oh, bloody hell. The world-class master of this, bar none, even referenced on TV programs, is Tony Robbins. He runs, if you're on one of his big events, he does a thing called the Dickens pattern. And basically, he brings you the ghost of Christmas past and the ghost of Christmas yet to come. And he shows you what you coulda, woulda, shoulda done, and that hurts. And then he brings you the ghost of Christmas yet to come and says, okay, well, if you don't change, this is what it's going to look like a year, 5 years, 10 years from now. How much do you want to walk on fire? Yeah? Ghost of Christmas present doesn't do shit. Because the ghost of Christmas present is where you are, and you just kind of put up with it. We've all got crap in our lives, and we just sort of put up with it because it's been going on so long that it's almost comfortable. Yeah? Not having enough gas in the tank to fly after 70 minutes, or whatever it might be. Yeah? Not picking on anybody, Scott, but you know. And that's probably not getting any better at this point, because once a week just makes it hurt more. So that's the challenge. Christmas present is where we all live, and we just kind of accept it. Oh, well, that's just who I am. That's just how things are. We ignore the fact that it got there over time, and we ignore the fact that if we don't do something about it, it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse. Yeah? So this is the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Multiply by the ghost of Christmas past. That's why it has such a massive effect when you do it. Again, though, it's all about tonality. You're just inquisitive. You're just trying to be helpful. You're just trying to make things clear in your head so you understand. Playing a little bit dumb, or being a little bit dumb. Yeah, whatever works. Yeah. There's a limited number of talents that I have. Some aspects of vocabulary and speech is one of them. Numbers is a second. You know, you can for some reason you can put a spreadsheet in front of me and I'll tell you what the numbers mean. I don't know how that works. I don't know why it is. I'm not even particularly good at maths, but you stick a spreadsheet in front of me, I'll go trend. I'll just say it. And the third thing is I'm reasonably smart. I've got friends who leave me in the shade. I've got kids who leave me in the shade. I'm reasonably smart. And because of my demeanour, I come across as a bit arrogant if I'm not very careful of it. So being smart and coming over as arrogant is a really dangerous combination. So I always downpedal. Sometimes I take it too far. I underplay myself. I'm conscious that I actually should up it a little bit. Because an arrogant 30-year-old comes across different to an arrogant 60-year-old. You can get away with it a little bit more because of the grey hairs. So I'm in the process of making some adjustments to my presentation myself. Because what I always used to do, Jerome, was come across 10 IQ points lower than I actually am. 10 IQ points less acute, less insightful than I actually am. Yeah? I'm not going to do the English thing and downplay that. I'm just going to say it as a fact. Yeah? Because the last thing you want to do is make somebody feel stupid. You don't want somebody feeling like a chump for, hang on, so shit, why haven't I done that? I've got him a moron. Because if you're the person that makes them feel stupid, they'll associate you with feeling stupid. That's not good. Yeah? But if they work it out for themselves and you happen to be on the call, yay! If they're smart and they educate you, yay! That's the positioning. You just hit it on the head. That's the positioning. You've got to come across just a little bit inquisitive, curious. You're trying to understand. You're trying to work things out. Okay? No. Oh, no. That, by the way, again, is iterative. You can do it and then do it and then do it. Because strictly speaking, I'm being a little bit semantic here. Strictly speaking, that is a precision question. Because you're summarising back, you're saying, so you've had this going on this many times, this often. How much does that cost you? Which, strictly speaking, that is a precision question. Yeah. Actually, at that point, will I empathise with somebody if they're in, they've just told me they're in a lot of pain? That sucks. Because another person empathising with you will make it even worse. Yeah, another person thinking, "Oh God, poor you. Oh damn, that's going to make it even worse."
The problem I would find, I don't know if it's anyone else, but the problem I would find if someone tells me they have a problem and it's big, whatever, it's got this huge. Need this GM, they've been looking for ages, and I go, oh my gosh, I have the perfect guy.
Yeah.
No.
Don't
jump in with it.
No. No. Eventually, when they ask you to, it's hard, it's tough. Yeah? I mean, I'm not suggesting you finish the call without talking about that person. Yeah, but it needs to fit into the context of the conversation. Yeah? I mean, you can even signpost it. All the stuff I talked about earlier sessions, loops around, and you'll think there was a process here. You can signpost it. You can say, well, oh, that's really interesting. I'd love to come back to you a little bit later on that, Jerome. I've got an idea, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Because the person you've got in your head might not be the right one, because you need more information first. What other questions, my lovely humans?
You may have gone through it, but goal and time.
Yeah. Oh, goal and time. Okay. So what you trying to achieve? Okay. How long have you been trying to make that change? Okay, so do you mind if I make this one relevant to you for a sec? Okay. So what kind of growth are you looking to achieve? 20%. Okay. How long have you been trying to do that for? Okay. So over that year, okay, you've not really made any big progress on it yet. You got a bit of a bump, so you got a 10%. Okay, so from what you're saying, you're leaving 10% on the table there that you could have had if you'd known how. Yeah. Okay. And that 20% you're trying to make this year, is that 20% from the original number, or is it 20% from where you are now? From the original number. So you've left that 10% on the table. Okay. I assume you've been doing stuff the last few months. Has the growth, that 10% growth, has that come in the last few months, or is it at the early doors? When was it?
Early doors.
Early doors. Okay. So whatever you've been doing the last few months hasn't really been moving the needle. Yeah. Okay. So if what you're doing isn't moving the needle, 6 months, a year from now, where are you going to be? If you don't make a change.
Worse off.
How much? I could dig in here. Yeah, I'm not going to, because this is looking like it might be a bit real. So, you don't, well, how much worse off? Yeah. What will you have left on the table? What will that 18 months of not making that growth mean for you? Okay. Not just in the business sense, but for you personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of your career, in terms of your self-image, in terms of the cash on the table, what will that 10% over 18 months mean for you? What will the impact be? Okay. Please notice there's a phrase I'm not using. I'm not saying how will that make you feel, because we're not psychotherapists. Okay. We're not psycho the rapists. Okay. That's how it's spelt. It's how it's spelt. Don't blame me. I didn't invent the word. Okay. We're not psychotherapists, so we're not going into, oh, how did that make you feel? We're talking about what would the impact be, what's that going to cost you, what will that mean? Yeah. Always getting a bit serious. You see what I'm going, how does that make, what will that impact be? What will that mean? What will the consequences be? What will that mean you've left on the table? What will that mean you could have had but you didn't have? What could you have done but you didn't? How would you feel about yourself at that point? Yeah. All that sort of stuff. Does that make any sense at all? Yeah? Okay. Then my work for the day is done. And next week, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to answer whatever questions you've got about this, because I'm sure you will have, because if you haven't, I've explained it wrong. Okay? Because I cannot explain this in an hour and you not have questions about how to do it. I'm not that good. It's any consolation to me, nobody's that good. Equally, I want to spend a big chunk of time looking at your problems, what you're trying to do to solve them, and why you're doing that particular thing as opposed to anything else. Okay? So please stick that stuff into the community today, tomorrow, to give me a chance to get my head around it, or give you any immediate fixes that I have to think of. I'm done. Thank you, my lovely humans. I appreciate you as always.